Chapter 24. Jacqueline's lips trembled, she wanted to cry again, but this time it was because she was scared. You don't scare me. She tried to muster up her courage, raised her voice, and repeated loudly and shakily, "Don't even think about scaring me." All she got was a contemptuous giggle from Siddle. She tilted her head to look at Jacqueline, her long eyelashes casting a shadow over her deep blue eyes filled with a thorny smile. "What good would it do me to scare you?" Siddle said indifferently, the corners of her lips curled up into a smile that didn't seem to be a smile. "The fairy pen has been here for a long time, it's right behind you, you're summoning it." Seeing Jacqueline's face getting paler and paler, Siddle was satisfied and decided to add fuel to the fire, lest in the middle of the night, she would turn around and look at some unknown fox/NM/a that appeared out of nowhere. She changed the subject, quietly saying, "You may not know, but actually my constitution is a bit special, I always encounter some unlucky things." Siddle sighed softly. "When I was 7 years old, my family adopted a little girl, but that child was a psychopath/perverted murderer." Jacqueline's lips trembled. Siddle continued, "After discovering the truth, my parents were afraid that I would be mentally ill, so they found a psychiatrist for me." She said sadly, "And yet that psychiatrist was also a mental patient." Jacqueline's whole body started to tremble. Although Dr. Hannibal wasn't a psychopath, but in order to scare Jacqueline, Siddle said he was a psychopath, secretly apologizing to him for a few seconds, although it wasn't very sincere. The little girl with blonde hair and blue eyes, with snow-white skin that was almost transparent under the light, her perfect face had no expression, except for the corner of her lips curling up into a strange smile. "I received a gift, it was a beautiful doll. Unfortunately, it's not very good, it always likes to run around the room in the middle of the night. There's also a puppet that doesn't like to hear screams. Its interests really don't match mine, so I packed it up with the doll and threw them away. By the way, if something strange happens when moving house, I shouldn't be blamed, right?" The beautiful girl tilted her head in confusion. "But why am I the only one who can see what's happening in the room, like blood everywhere, bodies being torn apart?" "Jacqueline, enough. Was this really something that humans could experience?" For a moment, she didn't know if she was more scared or surprised. "Well," Siddle frowned in distress, but the smile on her lips grew wider, as if a bright red gash was slowly opening up on the lower half of her face. "Do you want to go out? But the red-clothed pen fairy who was standing behind you just now seems to still be outside. She's still outside waiting for you to summon her." Ugh! Jacqueline's red and swollen eyes filled with tears again. She sobbed and took 2 steps back. Are what you said true?" "Of course not." The smile on Siddle's lips suddenly disappeared. She approached Jacqueline with a hint of malice, teasingly saying, "Isn't it? You actually believe in these ghost stories full of loopholes?" Jacqueline's tears were choked by Siddle's taunts, lingering on her eyelashes as if she didn't know whether to fall or not. "You!" The little girl was embarrassed, wanting to push Siddle away, but her hand was tightly grabbed by her. "Even though the ghost story is fake," Siddle reached out, wiped away the tear from her eye, and said softly, "But I don't know if the fairy pen is fake or not, maybe when you go out you can meet her." She smiled and patted Jacqueline's pale face. "There are some things that can't be done, just try and you'll be promoted, do you understand?" Jacqueline was so angry that she had trouble breathing from Siddle. She couldn't stand the cruel teasing of the person in front of her, so she pushed her away and rushed out the door. Not knowing if she was influenced by Siddle or not, when she left the bathroom, she looked at the place where she had just sat and shivered involuntarily. It was as if some kind of M/AQ/demon really existed there. In the bathroom. Siddle lowered her head and stared at the cold water rushing past her fingertips, her expression calm, her eyes hidden by long eyelashes with unclear emotions. When she left the bathroom, she conveniently turned off the lights. A pile of scraps of paper torn into uneven pieces were quietly scattered in the trash can in the corner. On one piece of scrap paper, neat handwriting written in black ink could be seen. "A peaceful night." Siddle slept very soundly, but she was still awakened by the sound of the other person was packing the next morning. She looked out of the mosquito net sleepily. The red-clothed female ghost who was in the corner of the house yesterday was nowhere to be seen. Gone. Siddle thought for a few seconds and decided to take a nap before thinking about anything else. She stretched out comfortably, hugged the blanket and rolled to the other side of the bed. It had been 5 years since her parents went abroad. 5 years ago, right after Dr. Hannibal had given her psychological counseling, Ray had received a job offer from a university abroad. Although it was not a famous university, this made Ray, who had been idle at home for several years, feel satisfied. And Kelson. Due to the need to develop the family business, he conveniently followed Ray to the same country. Euphemistically speaking, it was a business trip, but Siddle had reason to suspect that this man did not want to be away from his wife. Siddle, who was diagnosed by Dr. Hannibal as having no mental illness, was abandoned by her parents. Before leaving, the two conveniently found a school for Siddle. This was an aristocratic private school in America. Almost all the students studying here were children of famous politicians and elite businessmen. From elementary school to high school, they all received what was considered an elite aristocratic education. Then, with an expressionless face, Siddle eliminated the elective subjects such as flower arrangement, tea ceremony, and calligraphy chosen by her parents, and chose combat and anatomy herself. Although she was still in elementary school at that time, she was not taught any profound knowledge. In short, after a few years of studying at the school, Siddle successfully advanced to junior high school, and now, the first semester had ended. Summer break. During her first vacation here, Siddle was picked up by a relative to live with them. That relative's daughter, who was Siddle's distant cousin, brought back a close friend. As a result, that night, her best friend held a bunch of miscellaneous weapons and tried to kill someone, but Siddle hid in the closet, and when she was off guard, she used a brick to beat her unconscious. Later, it was discovered that her best friend suffered from multiple personality disorder. She was deeply in love with Siddle's older sister, and because of that love, she couldn't help but split into multiple personalities, and even turned into a violent murderer, wanting to kill their entire family, and kidnapped Siddle's cousin. Siddle, your relationship is so chaotic. She was extremely terrified of this situation. From then on, she refused any invitations from any relatives, and obediently stayed at school during every vacation. Fortunately, nothing major happened. There were still small problems. For example, last night, she would occasionally see strange things. Siddle had gotten used to it. But this vacation was different from the previous ones. Louise, with her fluffy hair, blushed and softly invited Siddle to her house to play. She was so cute. Siddle fondled the little Lolita for a while, and loved her so much that she felt lightheaded while walking. In the end, Siddle was successfully tricked by Louise to go home. Louise liked Siddle very much, not just because Siddle stood up for her when she was bullied at the beginning of the school year. She had a weak, introverted personality, was easily embarrassed, and was indecisive, and often liked to hide behind others. Siddle was decisive, so he often helped Louise make decisions. In addition, Siddle also liked sweet and soft girls, and in just one semester, the relationship between the two of them had unintentionally become closer. The sun had long since risen, and Siddle finally got out of bed. The dormitory was unusually quiet. Jacqueline wasn't there, Margot was on the phone on the balcony, and Louise was diligently reading a book. Siddle was preparing to pack her bags and go to Louise's house. She had just packed 2 sets of clothes when she suddenly remembered that she had things on the balcony. She pulled open the glass door and went out, suddenly hearing Margot's harsh voice, "Don't even think about it." Siddle. What happened? She glanced at Margot. The blonde girl noticed that someone was on the balcony, hurriedly lowered the volume of the phone, pretended to be calm, and shook her head at Siddle, indicating that nothing had happened. Margot took a few steps away from Siddle, lowered her voice, and continued to speak softly into the speaker. Siddle's sharp eyes noticed the flash of panic on her face. Was it because she was afraid that she had heard the conversation, or was it because of something else? Under the dim yellow light, Margot's side face showed a hint of fatigue. Siddle suddenly remembered something that happened when she first entered school. Margot, a new student, always seemed to wear long pants and long sleeves, spoke cautiously, and had a very weak sense of existence. While washing her face, Siddle accidentally saw faint bruises under Margot's long sleeves. It was also the first time Siddle saw Margot's panicked expression. She quickly pulled down her sleeves and turned away, as if she didn't want anyone to approach her. Margot had absolutely no intention of seeking help, and Siddle couldn't say anything. She could only silently pay attention to Margot for a few days, and then discovered that there was no bullying at school. In the following months, Margot seemed to have gradually adapted to her new environment. Although she was still a calm and mature girl, at least she no longer had her usual gloomy expression. When Margot walked in after making a phone call, Siddle noticed a heavy look of depression on her face. Today was the start of the holiday, so what worried Margot was her family. Siddle calmed down and looked indifferent. The girls quickly packed up their things, and after the teacher came to check, they were picked up by their parents and left the school. Jacqueline left first, leaving the three girls waiting at the school gate. Louise's family quickly arrived at school in a beautiful red Maserati parked in front of the door. Before Siddle left with Louise, she hugged Margot to say goodbye. "We've always been friends, right?" Her initial look of fear and anxiety was replaced by surprise. "Yes, that's right, we've always been friends." Siddle let go of Margot and winked at her. "Then don't forget my contact information. Remember to come and play with me during the summer vacation." After all, everyone was in the same city, and the transportation was very developed, and it would only take half a day at most for them to get to each other's house. "Miss Verger, see you again during the summer vacation." Little Louise, whose eyes curved like a crescent moon, also walked over to hug Margot. Margot was stunned, her usually cold face revealed a hint of shy gratitude. "Okay, I'll come find you guys when I have time." Siddle suddenly felt a jolt in her heart. She suddenly remembered that Margot's full name was Margot Verger. It felt a bit familiar. She thought about it over and over again but couldn't remember where that familiar feeling came from.